Okay, so we'll call the special council meeting dated Tuesday, June the 8th, 2021. Council having so requested and with the concurrence of myself, a special meeting of the Council of the Town of Crossfield is hereby called and convened as per section 194.3 of the Municipal Government Act. And no matter other than stated in the notice calling the special meeting may be transacted at the meeting unless the whole of council is present at the meeting and the council agrees to deal with the matter in question. So we'll call the meeting to order. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll move to accept the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that's carried. So under actions and decisions, the purpose of this special meeting is to deal with wastewater capacity. And we'll start with administration. Meryl, if you would give us your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Tennant. Before I go into the background, I just offer a quick preamble here. So going back to 2015, Council of the Day was led to believe that there was still wastewater capacity. So to date, we understand that the info of 2015 is not to be true, that a calculation error was made. Okay, so the public has a copy of this report. It has been posted on the website. And to offer background, at a previous meeting with Council, administration provided Council with the current status of the current capacity status of the 3-stage wastewater filtering system. It was reported that the 4-stage anaerobic cells have no capacity issues at this time. However, the facultative cell, the 60-day treatment cell, is over capacity and the effluent pond storage lagoon is nearing capacity. Although the figures for the storage component are not correctly reflected above in the wastewater treatment infrastructure capacity table 6-2, due to determining the correct lagoon depth and irrigation values, the critical action item, which is reflected above, is the 60-day treatment cell, which is at a deficit. So when we look at the report or the wastewater table 6-2, it shows that the actual volumes of the cell is at 69,900, and what we require is 81,000. So sorry, we're currently at a deficit for the current conditions. And now I'm going to pass it on to Joe, as he was going to provide council an update on the information that's been gathered to date.
Hi there. So I spoke to the town of Didsbury, speaking with the lead hand operator, Adam. Population currently of Didsbury is 5,000 people. They expanded both their facultative and storage ponds approximately 5 to 7 years ago. Phase 1, they added 215,000 cubic meters of storage to the effluent cell. Phase 2, they added new anaerobic cells, converted them to the storage cell, the then storage cell to the facultative 60-day cell. Their storage pond will now hold 600,000 meters cube of wastewater effluent. Adam estimated the upgraded lagoons will serve a population of between 10 to 12,000 people. Cost of wastewater lagoon upgrade was $13,077,838. They received a grant from Alberta Municipal Wastewater Partnership, was $6,112,582. Project was completed by ISL Engineering. They've extended an offer to go up and see what they've done, tour their lagoon systems. In speaking with the town of Three Hills, the utility coordinator, Brian, population of Three Hills is 3,216. The lagoon wastewater system was built approximately 2005 or 2006. Due to poor design and location, they're unable to incorporate their old wastewater system and built a whole new system. Alberta Environment sent letters to the town, to Brian, stating no more building until they upgraded their lagoon system. Engineers sent drawings to Alberta Environment approval for their input. Caliper was the building contractor. They are no longer in business. Their storage pond will now hold 688,000 meters cubed of effluent. The utility coordinator strongly suggested using a concrete rip pad, he called it, on the storage lagoon. It's basically a cement berm. With the size they're holding cell, due to the high winds, they have a huge erosion problem. Council has had to allot allocate $60,000 a year to add to their berm. The utility coordinator estimates that their lagoon will serve a population of 12,000 people. Cost of their lagoon upgrade was $14,785,083. Grants received were from the Municipal Wastewater Partnership was $8,913,316. Spoke to Red Deer County. We've learned that they're part of the South Red Deer Regional Wastewater Commission, which is composed of the town of Olds, Bowden, Innisfil, Penhold, and parts of Mountain View County. All 6 communities have their sewage pumped through a force main to the City of Red Deer Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant.
All right, so we also engage with our engineering consultant, All North. So All North has produced our sanitary master plan. So that's why we engaged with them for a solution here. We gave council within the report itself a list of the requirements that we gave All North in regards to their scope of work. What I do want to point out is we asked for 3 options as well to focus on the 60-day cells, and it should be at least a minimum of 7 to 10 years growth accounted for. The 3 proposals that were brought to administration's attention were basically an expansion of the cell footprints itself, an aeration system, and a packaged unit. Based on All North's recommendation, they recommended an aeration system where they did a comparison of a couple different companies asking for some estimates. So we provided the cost estimates that were gathered from those proponents itself. Again, these are estimates. These numbers are not finalized for us to actually get final numbers. There needs to be a motion by council, and we would have to go through an official RFP process asking for solutions, and they will submit their official costs. So they could be higher than this, but they could be lower than this as well. So based on the report itself, which council was provided a copy that they had within their package last night, there is about a few recommendations within the report. So based on the options outlined by All North, it would be administration's recommendation that council proceeds with the town to implement an aeration system, upgrade to the existing 60-day cell. An aeration system will allow the utilization of the town's existing assets, which will result in a more cost-effective solution than constructing a new cell. We have proceeded with engaging with All North to provide us with a quote for the RFP process itself. So the RFP process itself, it basically, their scope of work includes basically project management and preliminary modeling for the aeration system itself. So there is 2 types of aeration system. It could either be a deep treated aeration system or an upper treated aeration system. So the preliminary modeling and everything will basically identify which is the best way to go about it. We also need to conduct survey, geotechnical study, as well a preliminary engineering design drawing package. The approach that we would be taking for the engineering component itself would be basically a design build process itself. As well, they would be building the RFP for the design build and helping with the design build contract support itself. And the amount that they submitted for that was $73,015. The second recommendation was to assess the existing storage lagoon to confirm that it can structurally handle up to 3-meter depths of basically storage wastewater itself. So following this confirmation, the required notification to Alberta Environment can be made as part of the same notification covering the additional aeration. The increase to a 3-meter depth will add approximately 80,000 cubic meters to the lagoon's capacity. And the final recommendation would be to develop a long-term plan for upgrading the full town treatment system, including the primary, secondary storage, and tertiary treatments. In the near term, this plan does not need to be too detailed, but we do need a long-term plan when it comes down to it itself. So we've also provided a schedule for council as well. This is a very high level, basically stating that the approval process will take the whole summer itself. Selecting a long-term plan for the wastewater treatment, as well. So the RFP would be in the fall itself. Again, this could be expedited depending on council's agenda. So if we do want to try to push things along, we try to give ourselves a little bit, I would say, comfort when it came down to the schedule, kind of when it came down to it. We're expecting Alberta Environment's approval to be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, and that was kind of based on discussions we had with Alberta Environment, and the construction to be in the spring of 2022. We also,
a question just quick.
yes,
I don't have that schedule that I'm looking at.
it should be on page 6 of the report.
And I'm looking for the report. That's another question that I'm having.
It's attached.
That came when?
That was an email from Merrill on Friday.
Okay, good. Got it. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, all right. You have it pulled up?
I want a second.
No worries. I'll just wait. Let me know when you're ready.
Thanks. I got it.
Okay. So next, we kind of put in the discussions that we had with Alberta Environment itself. So discussions were held with Alberta Environment and the town in regards to the wastewater upgrade. The town chose to proceed with if the town chooses to proceed with the aeration system at the facultative cell, AE has confirmed that this will be acceptable in principle under the existing code of practice as a long-term upgrade and are designed to meet the minimum standards for the code of practice. So again, this is agreed in principle. A further review will be required and they will make their final decision. As we all know, Alberta Environment never gives you a solid yes or no. They just say, we'll have to see. But for the meantime, that was the best we were able to get out of them. As well, it stays within the existing code of practice. So we kind of basically outlined the process as well, which basically includes a notification submission to AEP, as well as with CC Terrence, who is the approval engineer for the Calgary Southern region. And next we're going to go into the for discussion component where we talk about the pivots. So I will be passing that back on to Joe there.
Okay, so a couple of solutions or a bit of history. Our current Lagoon pivot was installed by RPH Irrigation Service. The original pivot was installed in 1997. It's now 24 years old. The town-owned irrigation pivot is located south of the effluent cell. It was last used in 2005. Operation ceased when the effluent quality the effluent did not reach the quality guidelines in the code of practice for irrigation. RPH Irrigation has provided a quote of $111,354 to supply and install the center pivot system, and a quote of $40,701 to install a motor and turbine pump. Estimated volume of effluent we could use is right around 100,000, depending on the year, weather dependent. So with the pivot being installed in 97, has a life cycle between 20 to 30 years, depending on usage. It is recommended action, given the age of the farmland irrigation pivot system, it is reaching its maximum useful life. Administration's recommended to replace the entire system of a cost of $152,055. In regards to the golf course irrigation, the soil tax option is approved as a pilot program for 2021 only by Alberta Environment as a filtering system used to irrigate the golf course. The cost for the soil tax treatment plant is $652,670. Monthly operational costs $5,970. Electricity $8,000 to $12,000 a month. Estimates depend on electricity rates and on water quality. Operational and electricity costs are for 4 months during the summer irrigation season. Effluent quality or estimated volume of effluent is between 100,000 to 150,000 meters cubed annually to the golf course for irrigation. Use of the swirl tax system beyond 2021 would require the town apply for a permanent regulatory permit. Samson Water Service, they've quoted for a disinfection system. They provide a quote of $47,107.62 to supply and install a disinfection system that is required by the code of practice for irrigating a golf course with wastewater. Quote does not include groundwork such as trenching, which could be completed by the operations department. 8 by 10 shed would be required to house the system, approximately $2,500 to $3,500 for that. Depending on effluent quality, chemicals needed could cost up to $9,000 annually. Estimated volume of effluent is 100,000 cubic meters, sorry. Recommended action, Samson Water Service is a cost-effective solution to meet the golf course irrigation treated wastewater limits. This system will not require further approval as it is already approved under the wastewater code of practice as a disinfection system for wastewater irrigation in a golf course. Administration recommends that Samson Water Services supplies and installs a disinfection system at a cost of $47,107.62 with the total cost of $50,607.62. Annual operating costs could be up to $9,000 annually, depending on electricity, water quality, chemical needs.
Mayor Tennant, may I just interject here before
Certainly.
we continue? It should be explained that the Lagoon pivot and the Samson Water Services options contribute to the effluent storage problem. And the Samson Water Services would in fact replace the swirl tex option.
Okay, if I have a question about the cost of swirl text, do you want me to save that until after the
Yeah.
presentations?
Yes, because I do have a capital expenditure that I can
Okay,
explain at the
Thank
end.
you. Okay,
Hey, Joe, can you clarify the operations department? So the trenching, is that the operations department of the town of Crossfield or the golf course?
I'm sorry, town of Crossfield, we got a backhoe, so we just have to
Yeah.
transfer with the lines and electrical, so.
Yeah, just thanks.
So on the final page itself, we basically summarize all the recommendation of administration for council. What we do want to make everyone aware of is that each line item has their own costs associated with it. So for each recommendation, they each have their own costs associated with that. And we'd be happy to take any questions, but I believe our interim CAO has some additional information she'd like to present.
go ahead.
So we worked with our finance officer just to provide council with a good explanation about the expenditures and what's in place now and what could be in place should you choose to move forward with these options presented. So currently we have a committed or budgeted cost for swirl tex, including this year and next year, in the value of $673,520. Should council continue with the tendering of the aeration with All North at a cost of $73,015, continue with the farmland irrigation pivot system at $152,055, the disinfection system of the Samson Water Services option of $50,607.62. And if we were to implement at the top limit, the aeration system of $700,000, the project total would be $975,677.62, where the variance would be $302,157.62. That variance does not include the commitment that the town received from the golf course in the amount of $10,000 for this year. And it would not include the possible grant funding that the town would be awarded with, which we feel and are confident that out of one of the granting options, we would see a minimum of 50%. So that actually, we would be under budget, essentially. Should we, if we were to fall under the low limit of the aeration system, where it would be around 400,000, we would have a variance of a negative 2,157. But again, that doesn't include considering the $10,000 commitment from the golf course or the possible grant funding. So if we look at the granting options through Alberta Municipal Water Wastewater Partnership based on population, we may be eligible for 54.4% in grant funding of a total of $530,883. The Water for Life grant program, we don't feel we're really eligible for because you require 2 municipalities. So we're only applying for ourselves. And under the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund program, there's a 50% granting option, which would contribute $487,838.81. So there's a potential not to, I mean, when we consider the amount that was committed for the swirl tax option for only irrigating the golf course at a total of $673,520, there's the potential for this project to fall within the that dedicated amount.
I'm just going to jump in with one question on swirl text because I know the costs are listed there, but we did apply for it and were given a grant. So, but the big sticker for me is that it is just a pilot project for 1 year, whereas these others fall within pretty much within current guidelines. So while we list the swirl text cost of $673,520, the grant would be taken off that. So that isn't, no?
No, the grant was above that. So the town's commitment, from what I understand, this year was $436,280.
And that's
next
after
year,
the grant.
to
Okay.
have full ownership of the asset, we would have to pay an additional $237 or $1,240.
Okay.
If I may add on to that, the total sum for the Swirl Tech project was close to 975. I'm just
Okay.
going off the top of my head here.
Okay. I just need a clarification because
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that was.
We also
reflected.
talked to the grants individuals to see if it was possible to transfer the grants over. Unfortunately, it's not because it has to be a green initiative or it has to be a new initiative that has a green component to it.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that grant itself will have to be, well, it doesn't have to be returned because we didn't sign off on it yet. But yeah, so that grant's just basically a wash.
Okay.
Here's my question on the swirl text in the grant. Swirl text, number one, isn't new technology. The membrane was new, but the technology itself wasn't new. So I'm just curious as to why the aeration of this other technology wouldn't fit within that grant as well.
For sure. So the membrane component of the Swirl Tech project was actually the old technology because the membrane systems have been around forever and ever and ever. The way they filter the water was the new technology. So that was what Alberta Environment wanted to test, and that's why the grant was approved, because they wanted to test the method that they were using. And I believe as well, off the top of my head, I believe it was the way they were, the amount of chemicals and the way they were putting the chemicals in was another component of it. So it was better for the environment when it came down to it.
Okay, so the difference would be really on the technology side, not the use side for this grant.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mustafa, can I just ask a question? Is it not also the grant isn't transferable because the grant was designed surrounding like irrigating from the effluent and not the 60-day treatment cells? So they're two totally different stages of wastewater.
Yeah, so you're correct on that. So when the grant was submitted, it was submitted to basically treat from I believe, that's kind of, sorry, I'm blanking out for a second. I'm trying to think what was stated in the grant itself. But I believe, like the interim CEO said, it was the way it was processed, the water system itself.
Okay.
Get that, clears it up for me.
Okay.
Mayor, may I make a comment? It's more of a comment, not a question, but you guys can comment on it as well. But on the capital expenditures sheet, you have it listed out that that the swirl tax of $673,520, and then you have the variance of 302. All the things that we are going to basically do now will fix the whole thing. With the swirl tax, it would only fix one thing.
for 1 year.
So
Yeah.
it's a bit misleading on the variance. On not saying it's a bad thing the way we did it here. It's we're actually fixing the whole problem. Before, the swirl text was not fixing the 60-day cell. So I think we're doing a way better job with what we're doing here. And that $302,000 variance is I think it's very cheap to be able to fix that 60-day cell. So Mayor, may I ask a couple of more questions?
Sure.
Okay. This is for you, Joe. Just a question on the deficiency with the current pivot system. What seems to be the problem with it? Is it just kind of old, rusted out, just too much to put back into it to make it functional again? And then to go with a new system would be more cost effective going forward for, say, and I guess the question is, and you already actually answered it, is the 20 to 30 year lifespan going forward. So I'll let you think about that one. I do have another question, and this one is for you as well. It's just on sorry. I just have to go back to my notes here. I think it was the Sampson Water Services for the disinfectant. What would be the lifespan? I just didn't see a kind of a lifespan on our expenditure on, the 47,000, so 50,000. What would be the lifespan of that? So disinfecting the water to get to go over to the golf course for irrigation. So what would be the lifespan for that?
Lifespan, like in talking with Brian out at Three Hills, they irrigate with their golf course. So it's basically the same system. And
Yep.
he says it's been in effect for 15 years now. They haven't had any problems. You might have a pump that could go, but it's pretty low maintenance, pretty low cost.
Basically, it's an injection pump. Is it more or less what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's got a very long lifespan. I'm just thinking of, you spend 50 grand and it only lasts for 2 years. But
yeah, like I said, Brian says they're up to like 15 years on their current system, and if you maintain it well and put it away in the winter there, like those pumps should last
for sure
quite a few years.
Yeah, and then back to my original question, which was the deficiencies in the current pivot.
Yeah, so with the current pivot, like I said, it is nearing its life cycle. Like I started in 2004, and I think I seen it run one season. So, like the tires are starting to go bad. Nothing's ran. The vertical pump out at the pivot there, last time I heard, a couple of guys are out, started up and smoke come rolling out of the house. So we're thinking that system's pretty much been destroyed.
Is it when it does get replaced, because we are going to, hopefully replace it, the salvage value for that, are we going to be able to get a credit from the company that's, or can we, I don't know, kind of dumb it down and say,
that's a possibility. There could be a bit of a trade-in allowance. Like I was on their website the other day and they were selling like the pivot arm, and they like an older one, they were asking like 20, 30,000. So there is a chance we could
if we can get some trade-in value, some salvage value out of that. I'm sure there is, out of some of the pieces, and that would help on the bottom line for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have one question on the 60-day cell. There's going to be an accumulation of sludge on the bottom, right? Do we empty that, or does that get aerated out or stirred up?
No, not so much on the facultative. Like I remember at one time it was overfilled there and it went a bit stagnant, but I went out in a canoe there and probed it, and there doesn't seem to be that much settlement in it. And then for anaerobic ponds, we did have them dredged a few years ago. We had them inspected last year. They come on measuring with sonar. So we currently we don't have a sludge problem.
Okay, super.
Just to add on to that, Mayor. So your anaerobic cells where you're going to see the settlement of the different species and stuff like that. Your 60-day cell typically is supposed to be more cleaner water that just goes
Right.
in there to get oxidized.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if there was still an accumulation of sludge in that
For
one.
sure.
Thank you. Councillor Nelson, any questions? Okay, Councillor
Yeah.
Knight.
Just on page 5 of the part we're working off right here, the cost. So that costs comes up to 418, 450. I'm not sure the cost I'm looking at right here as compared to this piece of paper. On page 5 of the 12-page
For sure.
proposal, right?
Yeah.
What do those costs represent that I'm looking at from those total things as compared to what we're looking at right here?
Of course. So the cost that you see in the report itself is some of the aeration systems that we kind of looked at and asked companies just for estimates on what those systems will cost.
Okay.
And those are roughly the costs that they gave us based on not knowing the full picture. So what we do have to do is conduct those preliminary engineering studies to do the preliminary design and everything like that. And once we have that, we can create that package that gives them a better information. And that's where that price might fluctuate and go up and down. The capital sheet that our interim CAO has created is basically a summary of Swirl Tech project itself, as well as compared to what we are hoping to expense or the proposed projects that we have right now, including the aeration system, the pivot field, the solution for the golf course itself. I believe that's it, but I'll let Meryl add anything else if I missed
No, that
anything.
answers my question. I was just looking at the cost there and then I was looking at this. And I wasn't quite getting the whole.
I understand.
Okay.
So council should be aware as well that we have 2 representatives attending the meeting via Zoom from All North. If you have any technical questions, I believe we provided you with their reporting and their findings and recommendations. I don't know if you have any questions for them, but they are available.
I have one question, and I'm not really sure who it's directed to. And it's kind of, first of all, just a second part to Councillor Gustafson's response about the swirl text. And you're right, like that was kind of focusing on one part of what we need to address, but only for 1 year as well. So I think that is relevant because we would have to apply for all kinds of permitting. My second question is, now this plan that's tentative here, that gets us out quite a few years. Is there, the 60-day cell is the most important, so that's the one we have to address first. Is it, and I don't know whose opinion I'm asking for, but is it the opinion that the best step forward will be all these things, or is there one that buys us enough time that we can apply for the grants and see what grants we get and then plan step 2? So I'll throw that question out there.
Yep. I'll take that question.
Okay.
So for the proposed project itself, we do need to do all of them because once we put the aeration system in the 60-day cell itself, it does increase the amount of storage water that we have in that storage lagoon. We only have so much that we can release into the Nose Creek. And that's why we require the pivot fields as well as the Samson system itself. So the Samson system and the pivot field itself are all just basically increase our capacity itself.
So can I, if I could, Mayor, while he's on that point, could you give us kind of a ballpark on what needs to be put through the pivot and what needs to be put over to the golf course to sustain what we are going to take from the 60-day to manage the lagoon? So just so I don't have to kind of blast through the, go back through the notes here.
For sure.
Just kind of for everybody's knowledge, what comes out of the 60 into the lagoon, what needs to go through the pivot, what needs to go to the golf course to make it all work?
For sure. If it's all right, I'm going to direct that question over to Miriam because she did the technical report and I don't want to give you the wrong numbers.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. That sounds good.
Miriam, if you could please answer that question.
For sure. I'm just looking up the appropriate table in our memo here. It's going to come down to which year you're looking at. Obviously, you've got a particular situation that you've got right now, and we're talking about up to perhaps 10 years out. You'll obviously have more depending on the rate of growth of the town. So I had a table for that here. Sorry, just a moment here.
I think I did see it, Maren, but
Yeah.
it was on
Yes,
your
it's
report, wasn't it?
near the top of the report, just before all of we get into the cost. I think it's on page 3. There is a table in section 3.3. So essentially, right now, you're generating about 500,000 as of the records from 2020. So I think the existing storage cell, I think it was 465,000. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head exactly the number. And that's with a 2.5 meter depth, is that right?
That's correct.
Yes, so it really depends on whether AEP approves our 3 meter depth increase, which we could apply for fairly quickly here, and that would give immediate relief. The only thing that we would have to do, if that's something that you want us to look into, is just to make sure that storage cell can actually hold the additional depth, just with the condition of the berms. So if that goes ahead, it will be a fairly easy fix, as long as no issues are found with the berm, to buy you an instant sort of 80,000 extra cubes of water, which could help a lot with your immediate issues with being prevented from growing really any further. So I guess that's the first part. So if that goes ahead, great. If it doesn't, though, we need to look at really what the horizon you're looking at here. So if it's 2030, then we're looking at I think it was 4% growth that we assumed. You'll grow from about 500,000 up to about 740,000 or so. So there's an additional 240,000 that we have to deal with there. So you can split that however you like between the two, between the golf course and the pivot fields, but that's essentially the extra that we have to deal with.
And just to add on to that, so we did change the growth percentage from what was in the sanitary master plan. The sanitary master plan assumed an 8% growth, which was assigned by the previous CAO. Based on looking at what current market conditions are, an 8% growth is highly unlikely. So we did bring that down to something that's, more than reasonable at 4% itself.
That's with our approved subdivisions we've added on.
Yes.
Okay. Can I ask a question to the schedule? So when I read the schedule, because our motion forward to approve the new subdivisions for shovels in the ground, where does this tie us towards this? Like this schedule that I'm looking at here, is this the 60-day problem overall? This is what we're talking. We won't have our 60-day holding cell fixed till 2022. Is that what the schedule is telling me?
So based on the schedule itself, and Meryl, please correct me if I do speak out of line because I'm going off memory on this one. We had discussions with creations communities in regards to when they think they'll have the first house built. What we had basically stated as administration is we do need a year to be able to design and construct everything. So with the schedule that's provided here, I think it fits within that year timeline itself, or pretty close to it. If we do go over, it'll be over by a month or so. I'm not going to give you exact dates, but it might be over by slightly itself when it comes down to it. Yeah, so that's in regards to the schedule itself. So we're trying to match theirs. Again, they're going to be building show homes first, and their show homes are going to take a few months to build. From there, they are aware that it might take up to a year for this solution to come into play.
And if I may add, so council has recently given a subdivision approval for creation communities. There's one pending for Vista Crossing, which will be coming shortly to a council meeting. But within the administration approval recommendations, we have a condition in here that says building permits shall not be issued until the town of Crossfield has provided sufficient sanitary capacity to provide sanitary servicing to that development.
Yeah.
So we've already, although we've had that conversation with the developer already, we're still putting it in the conditioning notice of decision letter from council that this needs to be in place before we start putting people in homes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's zero chance this could get done in 2021 financially, or just project schedule wise.
It's in regards to the project schedule itself. We are at the mercy of Alberta Environment. So depending on how busy Alberta Environment is, it could take them 4 weeks to approve it. It could take them 6 months.
We've definitely conveyed to Alberta Environment that we need to get a fix in place, you know, sooner rather than later. But as Mustafa said, we're at their mercy.
Yeah. Our priority would be to try to get this done as quickly as possible, but we wanted to, instead of giving a schedule that's unrealistic and trying to aim for something that, you know, at the end of the day doesn't set us up for success, what we put in here is something that is achievable, and our goal is to actually get it done before this time period, but we do have to put the constraints that we are facing right now.
And if Alberta Environment requires it, it might get us a bit of traction as well to get it looked at. Deputy Mayor Harris.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. There's quite a few just around the grants themselves. So I'll get to the grants in just a second. My first question would be, how did we come to $10,000 with the golf course? Was that what they were able to contribute? Is that over the years? Does that go towards the operation each year more than the capital project? What does that look like?
So I'm going to pass that on to Joe because Joe was dealing with the golf course.
So yeah, and speaking with Lyndon over the last little while, he just wanted to send the, did you guys get the letter, Meryl?
I didn't provide it.
Okay, but yeah, he just wanted to contribute. So this year he's saying $10,000 towards the system, and they are going to allot future money for it.
A discussion that we have had internally itself would be, you know, the water that's provided to the golf course does provide them a benefit. So the $10,000 is a commitment that they've made at the moment, but a more thorough investigation needs to be made by administration to figure out what the benefit is to that golf course. And if it is a greater dollar value that they need to contribute, that would be a discussion we need to have with them.
Okay, but for now, the intent is it for it to cover maybe that operational cost on a yearly basis.
Exactly.
Okay, that sounds good. Are all the grants that you listed on here, all three of them, are they still all open to apply for? Or is one of them already closed?
I cannot confirm
No.
that at this time.
Well, you can let us know.
Yes.
I did
Yeah.
actually look into that.
Yeah,
So,
that's fine.
The Alberta Municipal Water grant is actually still open. So it's open till November 30th is based on what is said on the website.
Which leads me to my next question too. So go ahead with the rest of them.
No worries. So I also looked at the clean water and wastewater funding as well. That itself, it seemed like it was closed at the moment. And as well, the Water for Life also appeared to be closed at the moment. I did make a call to, I believe, an individual in Alberta Environment itself. They said they're looking into the Water for Life right now, and there might be additional funding coming into that.
Yeah, and what I would say on those two grants, even though they're closed, depending on how desperately we need funding to fix our issues, we can always give a shout out to one of the ministers, or perhaps the mayor can lead that discussion and advocate for a case for us to be able to get funding through that. I know another municipality has done that just recently, so I don't mind pushing just a little bit to see if we can tap into that.
For sure.
Now, on the deadline for November 30th, here's my question. For some of these grants, sometimes you have to apply for the grant and then do the project. In this case, can we do the project and apply for the grant at the same time? Does it have to be before, or can we do it afterwards?
So that is something we looked into. It did not specify on the website. Administration is going to be following up with the grant, through the grant itself, to see if that is a possibility and figure out what their procedures are. It did not clearly state on the website whether you need to get the funding beforehand before you can proceed, or if you could proceed and they will allocate the funding afterwards. So that will be a question that administration will ask the grant fund itself.
Okay, great. And then my next question on the grants is, can these grants be used together, or can we only tap into one of them?
It depends on the grant, I'm going to say. I know based on what I read, I believe the Water for Life is one of those ones that it can only be solely. You can't combine it with anything else.
Okay, but it's something that we'll look into
Exactly. We will look
and
into that.
use the grants to our best potential.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you for that. And can the grants be applied for more than once? So from a municipality. So right now we're looking at a fix that's going to last for 10 to 12 years, but it's not really one of those big lasting fixes. Similar to what, say, Three Hills or Didsbury did at a higher cost. So my first question there would be, can we apply now for this grant towards this project? And then when we're ready, saying that these grants are still available at that time, can we apply for those again to match up with the larger project that we're going to have to do in the future?
For sure. That will be a question that we will ask them as well. So we will include that as part of our email. That was not something that we looked at.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not just quite done yet.
Go ahead.
Okay. And just a question, is it for budget reasons that we're looking at this short-term fix? I'm not going to call it temporary, but short-term fix for the next 10 years instead of going down a path of doing something more permanent?
Sure. So I'm going to answer this to the best of my abilities, and I'll let Meryl chime in after. So basically, we're looking at an intermediate fix right now, just because we do have two developers that are at our doorsteps that would like to proceed with development. So we want to find solutions that we can implement as soon as possible, but as well that benefits the town, not just short term, more of an intermediate phase.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we came up with the solutions that we did. As one of the recommendations itself was to incorporate a long-term plan for the municipality. That would be something that we would be keen on doing. As it'll also be incorporated as part of our asset management program, so we can have it budgeted properly for the future. So when it does come up in 7 years' time, we're not doing the same musical chair game, we'll call it, that we have the funds and everything set aside, and we're able to proceed with the upgrades required to for the municipality to continue to grow.
Excellent. And we're getting down to almost my last question. So you mentioned that you would need a motion to get an RFP. My question on that is, do we need a motion for an RFP, or do you guys send the RFP out and get how much it's going to cost, and then council approves the budget for that?
Sure. So what we do need is a budget allocated for projects before we can go to RFP. So under the trade agreement, if we do not have a budget set aside and we go for RFP, it's considered bid shopping. And that's
Right.
why the motion is required, so that it shows that there is a fund allocation for the project. And by doing that, we avoid the whole bid shopping component. And that's basically the main reason for having those motions there.
Okay, great. So now I just have a couple of comments. So I think that once we get this aeration and everything up and running, I think there's just some messages we want to send out to the community. I know that when you initially start aerating, there could be more of a smell. And so we want to mitigate that a little bit out to the community. So that's one. I know that aeration is going to be one of the keys in not only keeping the smell down in the long term, but is also a fix to our midterm solution of what we want to accomplish. And then I just want to thank staff and All North for all the work they've put into this over the last couple of months since we knew that this was an issue. And thank you for all your work and thorough investigation into this. Thank you.
I just have two questions kind of left. The 3-meter berm, and I believe it's in here, but it was a little in-depth reading in some of it. If we can't do the 3-meter berms, we still have the alternate solutions in here.
Exactly.
Correct? Okay.
So basically all the, moving from a 2.5 to a 3 meter, it just increases our storage capacity by 80,000 cubic meters.
Okay, just so that I have that for the public as well. And then our lease agreement on the farmland, we've gone through that. There's no issues with getting the irrigation out there, right?
No.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do actually have a question. So do any of these companies periodically come in and check the system and make sure that it's running smoothly and there's no issues, or are we left to do that?
So there is an annual maintenance on any system that you buy. So typically you would set up a servicing policy with them where they come and service the units and everything like that. There's always the option of, you send an individual down there and they can learn how to service it. But depending on what the costing of the servicing of a required unit would be, we'd figure out what the best approach is. So because we don't know which unit we're going with, we couldn't really compare the servicing levels as of this moment. But as part of the RFP process, one of what we're going to do with it is not just going to be solely based on cost. It'll be cost and technical components as well as operation and maintenance cost, right? Just because something has a low internal cost, but the operation cost ends up costing us way more in the long run, that's not really the best solution. So we're going to find whatever the best solution is. And from there, we'll figure out what the best approach for administration is, whether we learn how to do the annual maintenance or whether we get the service provider to come do that. And typically, based on their expertise, we usually let the service providers come just because it takes quite a long time to get all the knowledge that they have.
Okay, anything from the representatives from All North that you want to add that you think we might have missed or that you want to provide more detail or anything on?
Currently at a very high level, just that you have several related issues to solve here. So there's the facultative cell, which is the most important, has been highlighted a couple of times here, because you're currently over capacity as the current state stands. But there is also, I guess, the irrigation. So the quality of the irrigation water, the issues that have come up, the reason why we're not irrigating right now, that will be alleviated somewhat by the aeration system. So it may be worthwhile once the design proceeds further, if it proceeds further, to take those new effluent quality targets that we're aiming to meet with this aeration system and see if that affects your irrigation technologies or chemical costs. It may come down a bit, not that I could really put any numbers to it, but the aeration system should help. As it sounds like as the facultative secondary treatment cell became more over capacity, that probably contributed to the reason you couldn't actually use that water for irrigation in the past. So once we mitigate that, it may become much less of an issue to meet those quality requirements. Although that's just a high level comment I would have, maybe worth taking into account, but it would be hard to quantify at this time what exact impact that would have.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from All North? Meryl, do you have any final comments?
I do not. I believe we've provided council with the information required in order to make a decision to move forward for this midterm solution.
Okay. All right. And then for public information, there are several parts to the motions that we're going to be making. All will each have their individual separate costs. So the motion is quite lengthy. If there are no further questions from council, are we ready for the motion? Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. And do you want to read the whole motion out?
Do we want to go through the entire motion, or it's on our website? I can make the motion as described in the agenda.
Okay. Do we want it read? Is it for public or not yet, because we haven't made the motion?
It wasn't made public, but if council would like, I can read the motion.
Okay. Do you want me to read it out and then you can make it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the motion that council makes the motion based on the recommendations of administration and options outlined by All North to proceed with implementing an aeration system upgrade to the existing facultative 60-day cell with construction costs not to exceed $700,000, and that the town proceed with the tendering of the said aeration system upgrade to the existing facultative 60-day cell with All North at the cost of $73,015, and that the town proceed with replacement of the entire farmland irrigation pivot system at a cost of $152,055. and that the town proceed with the installation of a disinfection system supplied and installed by Samson Water Services at a cost of $47,107.62, with a total cost of $50,607.62 and an annual operating cost of up to $9,000 annually. And further, that administration proceed with assessing the existing storage lagoon to confirm that it can structurally handle up to a 3.0 meter depth of stored wastewater. And following this confirmation, that the required notification be submitted to the Alberta Environment and Parks as part of the same notification covering the addition of aeration. And that administration develop a long-term plan for upgrades to the full town treatment system, including primary, anaerobic, secondary aerobic storage, and tertiary pre-discharge polishing treatment, and that administration applies for granting to subsidize costs through Alberta Municipal Water and Wastewater Partnership, Water for Life Grant Program, and Clean Water and Wastewater Fund Program. That is the motion made by Councillor Gustafson.
So moved.
All in favor?
Can I just say something first? I wonder if those are 3 grants that we know of right now, but do we add in and any other grants that can be applied for?
Absolutely.
Would that be okay?
Can we add
We
that to
can
your motion?
Absolutely. Let's make that.
Okay.
Thank you,
With
sir.
that inclusion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you to administration and staff for the preparation of the detailed information. Thank you all, North. And that is what the special council meeting was called for. So we have a motion now to adjourn. Who would like to make that motion?